Well, unless you've been living under a rock for the past week, you've probably heard that Cavill has returned. That is correct. Henry Cavill will be reprising his role as Kel-El, Superman, Clark Kent. And he seems very optimistic about this reprisal of the beloved character. So we're going to dig a little bit into bounding, and then we're going to dig a little bit into why WB might make this decision when people were begging for it for years and it seems like it was never going to happen. And then it's like there was a massive change and common sense took over. But we'll get more into that in a little bit. So, Cavill addresses fans in new video, announces his return as Superman following highly anticipated cameo in Black Adam. This is the video that he dropped on his social media, and it officially announced his return as Superman. He gave a very reassuring and considerate acknowledgement to the fans in his video, which we'll quickly view right here.
I want to thank you guys most of all. Thank you for your support and thank you for your patience. I promise it will be rewarded.
That was the very brief snippet. The full clip is 52 seconds long, as you can see, and you can go check it out on pretty much any social media platform. And what this signals is a changing of the tide. Clearly something has happened where this has to be more than just the message. But what could that have possibly been? As we know, Zaslav has taken over for the merger of Warner Brothers Discovery, but that was months ago. This article is all the way back from April 8th of this year. So why wait 6 months, almost 7, to make this announcement of Cavill returning in the Cape? Well, likely it's because they knew what the response was going to be. Cavill was very well received. He is very loved. So it would make sense that Warner Brothers would want to capitalize on that. Yet they sat on their hands for 5 years. And so it makes you wonder what Zaslav could possibly be looking at in terms of making his decision. So when we get into the article here, to the meat and potatoes of it, Warner Brothers Discovery will be saddled with $55 billion in debt. Now, that is mostly tied to the merger, but as some people may remember from our good friend Az over at Hill vs. Babyface, he talked about the CW purchase, and not only did they basically give the CW away, but it still was too expensive because of all of the debt. So it makes sense that Zaslav is trying to find a surefire investment. Now, if people want to come at me and talk about numbers, be like, well, Cavill Superman never took off. He's not Christopher Reeve. He never broke the $1 billion benchmark. I hear you. I do. Trust me. But Zaslav isn't stupid. He's got limited options, and he isn't going to try and win a spending war against Disney and Netflix. Why bother? Netflix is spiraling down the drain, and Disney Plus is imploding. He is letting the competition take itself out, which is extremely smart business. Another smart business move was bringing back Cavill. Let's take a look at some of his track record. 2013 Man of Steel. Okay, opening weekend, $116,619,362. Definitely nothing to frown about. Absolutely fantastic opening weekend, and took worldwide box office for $667,999,518. So, no, did not crest that $1 billion mark, but it certainly wasn't a nothing movie. I remember when, especially back in 2013, you didn't have to hit $1 billion just to try and make a profit, just to try and be some kind of a hit. This was an extremely successful film, especially with a production budget of $225 million, which at the time was insane. That means that they would have had to have made $500,000 to break even. So they profited on Man of Steel. Maybe not as much as they wanted, but definitely made some money there. Then we go over to Batman vs. Superman from 2016, and we've got an even bigger opening weekend. $166,007,347 with a worldwide box office also impressive at $872,395,091. These are not small movies, and the production budget for Batman v Superman was not that much more, less than $10 million more for Man of Steel. And we're talking 3 years down the road, so we've kept the budget relatively similar. So again, they would have had to make about $500,000 to break even. This made them much more profit. Now, stuff started to take a bit of a tailspin when Joss Whedon took over, and we have Justice League. Opening weekend, not quite as impressive as what Cavill was able to pull in on his own, or what he and Affleck were able to do together with the cameo from Godot. So we've got a $93,842,239 opening weekend. And it still pulled a $655,945,209 box office. Not anything horrid, but what you would hope to see would be growth from the previous success. From Man of Steel, then to Batman v Superman, you would have genuinely expected Justice League to hit that $1 billion mark or be much closer. But it just could not crest it. Now, this rolls us into, okay, well, obviously, that this means that people didn't like it. People are over it. People don't want the Justice League. They don't want Batfleck, and they don't want Cavill in the cape. They don't want Godot as Wonder Woman. They're over it, right? We've got Aquaman 2 coming up, and everybody's like, oh, well, everybody's going to be so over Jason Momoa as Aquaman. Don't get me started on, we're just going to blot you out. Ray Fisher is kind of in this limbo that he created himself. Not really sure what's going to happen with him and his cyborg, but I do know that for Cavill to be returning might be enough to get Affleck to come back, which I would be very appreciative of because I did like his portrayal of Wayne and Batman. Most comic book accurate by far. Loved to see it. If this was on a downward trend, why would Zaslav bring Cavill back? Because as we know, Twitter really can be an echo chamber. So what might be happening on social media may not reflect real numbers. What does reflect real numbers are ratings and viewership. We're going to look at Zack Snyder's Justice League. Now, this pulled in, between DVD and Blu-ray sales, $15.969 million. Right? Got very close to cresting to $15.9691. Just shy of it. Okay, well, that's not terrible, but we've seen better, right? Well, it was, as we know, it was an HBO Max streaming special. It was in March of 2021. So what does that mean? Where are the numbers? We don't have the box office to really compare, but we can make an inference. Snyder Cut watched by 1.8 million households on HBO Max. This is via Small Screen, which is a UK site. But here we go. Samba TV, 1.8 million U.S. households watched Justice League Snyder Cut on HBO Max during opening weekend, 3/18 to 3/21. But Snyder Cut did something that Amazon's Rings of Power was not able to do. People went and got an HBO Max subscription just to watch this. Nobody got a Prime just to watch Rings of Power. That is incredible. The fact that it generated that much interest that people went to go make a new HBO Max account just to watch the Snyder Cut. Well, when we talk about 1.8 million households, what exactly are we looking at number-wise? How many people is that? Where can we find that answer? Well, the average family size in America in 2021 is 3.13 people. Time for some math. So we take 1,800,000 households, and we multiply it by 3.13 persons per household. That's 5,634,000 people. And now you're like, okay, well, the US has 300 million people in it. That's not all that great, right? But when we think about ticket sales, now, depending where you're at, they can differ. Of course, there's matinees, and you have children's tickets, and you've got senior discounts. So, if we split the average and we just go ahead and try and do this as fair as possible, I think everybody could agree that $13.50 per ticket, some places that's pretty cheap, honestly, is not bad at all. That kind of helps us find that medium. We take that number from the households. Remember, we got that 5,634,000 from the average household size. So we've averaged the household size and we're averaging the ticket price, which means that on opening weekend, if the Snyder Cut had been in theaters, it would have most likely averaged $76,059,000, which, all things considered, is not at all anything to be disappointed about, especially with what the box office has looked like lately, and considering that it would have beaten out Black Adam by almost $10 million. That's what we're talking about. This is why Zaslav has brought Cavill back. It makes financial sense. It's not just, oh, it's a safe bet, we're going to do the safe thing, we're going to have a return on investment for us. Any company should always want a return on investment. You as an individual should want a return on investment. Why Warner Brothers never picked Cavill back up until now, we can speculate, we can argue, we can listen to the rumor mill, but the fact is, they never brought him back. Zaslav took over, and now Cavill's back in the Cape. But think about it. Fans have been begging for Cavill to come back for 5 years. That's 5 years of patience. That's 5 years of pushing. That's 5 years of tweet trending days, tweet trending hours, trying and pushing to get Cavill back. And now it's paid off. If you think that fans who pushed for this are not going to put their money where their mouth is, you're going to be very surprised when Cavill's next Superman movie hits theaters. I'm going to make a completely irrational, emotional estimate here. But based on what we have seen, Man of Steel cleared $116 million for opening weekend. Batman v Superman cleared $166 million. And then, of course, we had Justice League bringing down the average to $93 million. And we did the math. Justice League Snyder Cut would have at least averaged about $76 million opening weekend. So if you think that after asking for 5 years to get Cavill back in the Cape, there's going to be a lackluster turnout, oh, I can't wait to see your faces when this movie clears $125 million its opening weekend. Because it would not surprise me if it did. Thank you so much for stopping by. I greatly appreciate every single one of you. Let me know in the comments what you think. If Cavill coming back in the Cape is a good thing, a step backwards, finally Warner Brothers doing something that makes sense, and if you think that it's too little too late, or if the Man of Steel is going to be able to rise from the grave. Appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much for stopping by. God bless. Godspeed. Much love.